Okay, folks, that time again. Mouthpiece is in. Cup check time. It's time for Hard Knocks and Cheap Shots, and talk about a lot of cheap shots. TLC.
What a pay-per-view, the last one of 2014 for WWE, and should come to no surprise that Cena in the main event, John Cena defeated Seth Rollins, which pretty much puts him into the world title hunt now against Brock Lesnar for the Royal Rumble.
Thoroughly enjoyed that match. I love what they did with reintroducing Roman Reigns back into the picture, having him be a big part of it, saving the day for John Cena. The match was enjoyable. I mean, it was inevitable that it was going to be Brock Lesnar versus John Cena at the Royal Rumble. But sometimes with wrestling, it's all about the path to the match, and I thoroughly enjoyed the path to the match on this time.
Well, the big surprise to me here, I mean, the fact that Roman Reigns is now back in the action, this changes a lot of the dynamics, especially for the Royal Rumble. And because it pretty much, I mean, the rumors have been for a while that this is the guy that's going to go on and win it and headline at WrestleMania. So now that they have him back from that shoulder injury, which could have put him out for as long as a couple of months, that's a pretty big move now.
Yeah, and it seems like they're gonna have it's a 6 week gap between TLC and Royal Rumble. That's a pretty big stretch. So looks like they're gonna have him feuding with the Big Show, which isn't a bad program for him as he gets back into the picture. Which it seems like they're grooming him for a main event slot at WrestleMania, more than likely against Brock Lesnar. I thought the event overall was good. I love the end of the Bray Wyatt Dean Ambrose fight, with the exploding television. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Having Nikki Bella, the old school hairspray to the eyes, always a classic I like to see. And what I thought was possibly the match of the night, Dolph Ziggler versus Luke Harper in that ladder match, which was full of a lot of bumps. At one point, I thought Luke Harper broke his arm. He had a nasty gash, bleeding from his arm. It was considering the bar that NXT TakeOver set for them a few days ago, I thought it was a very good pay-per-view.
And moving on to boxing, Diego Chavez and Timothy Bradley have fought to a very controversial draw at the end of Saturday's match.
Bradley got hosed, it seems like. This seems to happen to him a lot. I mean, you talk to some people that are anti-Pacquiao haters or just neutral, he got robbed on that one. One of the judges, Julie Letterman, I believe, had the fight 116, 112, something like that for Chavez, which that was not the fight that anybody saw that night. The draw you can justify depending how you scored it. The other judge had it for Bradley, but 116, 112, that just stinks.
And speaking of which, Amir Khan also had a pretty big night. He beat Devon Alexander. But now here comes the interesting part now. This could potentially set up a match with him and Floyd Mayweather, but then Mayweather comes out over the weekend saying that he's agreed to tentatively to this whole Manny Pacquiao thing, the fight that we never thought we'd see it happen.
Here's the thing about that. Pacquiao and Mayweather are a lot like Republicans and Democrats. A whole lot of rhetoric, laying blame on the other, and nothing getting done. And this is the same case as what's going on right now. At the end of the day, I'm not sure Bob Arum is going to have both Canelo and Cotto on that date as he will Pacquiao versus Mayweather. He's cutting his revenue because now you're forcing the fan to choose between his two fighters, and that's just the politics of the sport. So again, it's a whole lot of nothing being talked by both sides. Nothing's going to happen. Mayweather's likely either going to fight Amir Khan or try to snake Cotto away from Canelo and take that fight on that date. But Pacquiao-Mayweather, I'm sorry, folks. Y'all need to get over it, man.
Still at the very least for the announcement, then it's still something that's going to be interesting to see develop over the next couple of months. And moving on to UFC news, Junior Dos Santos had a pretty big weekend when he beat Stipe Miocic. Is that
Miocic. It was a bloodbath. It looks like Junior Dos Santos, those wars against Cain Velasquez are starting to wear on him. He was a mess. But he got the decision. Some felt the fight could have gone the other way. It puts him once again in a position to go for a title shot, whether it's against Verdum or Cain Velasquez. We're not sure. They might put him in the ring against Alistair Overeem. I don't know why. I think he'll destroy Alistair Overeem. It could be against Mark Hunt. I don't know why he'll destroy Mark Hunt. At the end of the day, this is, again, a top-heavy division with only 3 genuinely good fighters and everyone else a middle-of-the-road fighter. which again leads to believe that maybe Brock Lesnar will be back in UFC. Who knows?
Interesting prediction. But one other thing that was of interesting note is that Nate Diaz, he had some pretty interesting words about CM Punk, but now he went on and he lost his last match.
Well, I mean, he was in there against Rafael Dos Anjos, and I mean, Rafael Dos Anjos is the number 3 contender in that division. It looks like he may set himself up for, after that win, set up himself for a fight against Anthony Pettis. But what Nate Diaz, he's saying what everyone else in that locker room is saying, is that you have a guy who is an amateur, a guy who has never had any experience, pretty much getting paid in half the, pretty much most of the people on that roster. And, you know, as Nate Diaz says, if he wanted to just take time off from UFC to go to the NFL, that would never happen, because he's an amateur at football and they're not hired to go into that straight level right away. And so he's only bringing up points that everyone in that locker room is thinking.
Very true. Although the irony of bringing that up and then going ahead and losing the fight was just kind of comical to me. But at the very least, I've been saying it all along that I think everybody deserves a shot. I think at the very least, if Punk feels in his heart that he's going to go for this thing, then I say let's roll with it and see what happens.
You don't take someone from the UFC roster and then just stick him to go play NBA. And as Nate Diaz said, you know, it cheapens the fighters, because now it's like you're putting a guy who really has no experience in there with an amateur with pros, and that's a downgrade for the rest of the roster. I mean, people hate hearing that, but he has a point. And again, people may not like the messenger. Nate Diaz is a very polarizing figure. Ironically, he is a pipe bomb. He is CM Punk in real life for this organization, and they're not liking what he's saying. Chances are Nate Diaz is on his way out. UFC, he's lost 3 out of his last 4 fights, probably end up at Bellator World Series of Fighting. But again, he's only saying what no one else on the roster is willing to say out loud.
Yeah, well, so it's going to be a very interesting development to watch. And that wraps up this edition of Hard Knocks and Cheap Shots. Remember to tune next week for more. To continue the conversation, remember to log on to LatinPost.com. I'm John Paul Salamanca, this is Evan Lena, and we are punching out.